race around the kitchen table, and that's what we're going to get done.
Thank you. President Trump?
We have the greatest economy in the history of our country. We have never done so well. Everybody was amazed by it. Other countries were copying us. We got hit with COVID, and when we did, we spent the money necessary so we wouldn't end up in a Great Depression, the likes of which we had in 1929. By the time we finished, so we did a great job. We got a lot of credit for the economy, a lot of credit for the military, and no wars, and so many other things. Everything was rocking good. But the thing we never got the credit for, and we should have, is getting us out of that COVID mess. He created mandates that was a disaster for our country. But other than that, we had given them back a country where the stock market actually was higher than pre-COVID, and nobody thought that was even possible.
What commentary?
Jobs he created
Anybody want to jump in here? What's happening?
Immigrants and bounce back jobs, the bounce back from the COVID. He has not done a good job. He's done a poor job, and inflation's killing our country. It is absolutely killing us.
Thank you. President Biden?
Well, look, the greatest economy in the world. He's the only one who thinks that, I think. I don't know anybody else who thinks he has the greatest economy in the world. And, the fact of the matter is that
that's a rebuttal.
We find ourselves in a situation where his economy, he rewarded the wealthy. He had the largest tax cut in American history, $2 trillion. He raised a deficit larger than any president has in any one term. He's the only president.
I had thought that this guy was holding back. I do not think that now.
The idea that he did something that was significant in the military. When he was president, they were still killing people in Afghanistan. He didn't do anything about that. When he was president, we were still finding ourselves in a position where
this guy brings up Afghanistan. What the fuck?
We were this safe country. The truth is, I'm the only president this century that doesn't have this decade, that doesn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world like he did.
President Trump, I want to follow up if I can.
You want allowed to respond to him?
Well, I'm going to ask you a follow-up. You can do whatever you want with the minute that we give you. I want to follow up. You want to impose a 10% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. How will you ensure that doesn't drive prices even higher?
Not going to drive them higher. It's just going to cause countries that have been ripping us off for years, like China and many others, in all fairness to China. It's going to just force them to pay us a lot of money, reduce our deficit tremendously, and give us a lot of power for other things. But he made a statement. The only thing he was right about is I gave you the largest tax cut in history. I also gave you the largest regulation cut in history. That's why we had all the jobs. And the jobs went down, and then they bounced back, and he's taking credit for bounce back jobs. You can't do that. He also said he inherited 9% inflation. No, he inherited almost no inflation, and it stayed that way for 14 months.
This
and then it blew up under his leadership because they spent money like a bunch of people that didn't know what they were doing, and they don't know what they were doing. It was probably the worst administration in history. There's never been. And as far as Afghanistan is concerned, I was getting out of Afghanistan, but we were getting out with dignity, with strength, with power. He got out. It was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country's life.
President Trump, over the last 8 years, under both of your administrations, the national debt soared to record highs. And according to a new nonpartisan analysis, President Trump, your administration approved $8.4 trillion in new debt. Well, so far, President Biden, you've approved $4.3 trillion in new debt. So, former President Trump, many of the tax cuts that you signed into law are set to expire next year. You want to extend them and go even further, you say. With the U.S. facing trillion-dollar deficits and record debt, why should top earners and corporations pay even less in taxes than they do now?
Because the tax cuts spurred the greatest economy that we've ever seen just prior to COVID. And even after COVID, it was so strong that we were able to get through COVID much better than just about any other country. But we spurred that tax spurred. Now, when we cut the taxes, as an example, the corporate tax was cut down to 21% from 39%, plus beyond that. We took in more revenue with much less tax, and companies were bringing back trillions of dollars back into our country.
Well, amazing.
The country was going like never before.
Tax the shit
and we
out
were
of
ready to start paying down debt. We were ready to start using the liquid gold right under our feet, the oil and gas right under our feet. We were going to have something that nobody else has had. We got hit with COVID. We did a lot to fix it. I gave him an unbelievable situation with all of the therapeutics and all of the things that we came up with. We gave him something great. Remember, more people died under his administration, even though we had largely fixed it. More people died under his administration than our administration, and we were right in the middle of it, something which a lot of people don't like to talk about. But he had far more people dying in his administration. He did the mandate, which is a disaster, mandating it. The vaccine went out. He did a mandate on the vaccine, which is the thing that people most objected to about the vaccine. And he did a very poor job, just a very poor job. And I will tell you, not only poor there, but throughout the entire world, we're no longer respected as a country. They don't respect our leadership. They don't respect the United States anymore. We're like a third world nation between weaponization of his election, trying to go after his political opponent, all of the things he's done. We've become like a third world nation, and it's a shame. The damage he's done to our country, and I'd love to ask him, and will, why he allowed millions of people to come in here from prisons, jails, and mental institutions to come into our country and destroy our country.
President Trump, we will get to immigration later in this block. President Biden, I want to give you an opportunity to respond to this question about the national debt.
He had the largest national debt of any president in a 4-year period, number one. Number two, that $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. I mean, billionaires in America. That $2 trillion tax cut, they're in a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those
Holy
numbers,
shit.
they've raised $500 billion, I should say, in a 10-year period.
No, he's got his math down. Sharp on the math
there.
there.
Help make sure that all those things we need to do, childcare,
Just a little bit of communism.
making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single
A
solitary
little bit of socialism.
person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. Excuse me, with
Talking about this?
Dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare because all of these people are coming in. They're putting them on Medicare. They're putting them on Social Security. They're going to destroy Social Security. This man is going to single-handedly destroy Social Security.
Oh, I wonder if he's seen that one coming. Has Social
coming
Security been on
They're
the
trying
radar?
to put them on Social Security. He will wipe out Social Security. He will wipe out Medicare.
That's
So
the
he
baby
was right in the
boomers.
way
Right
he
now,
finished
they're
that
a big
sentence. And it's
voting
shame.
bloc.
What's
that's
happened
voting
to our
Biden, I
country
think.
in the last 4 years is not to be believed. Foreign countries, I'm friends with a lot of people. They cannot believe what happened.
He's not
to the
writing
United
anything
States
down.
of
A lot of
America.
times in
We're
these
no longer
debates, they write
respected.
stuff down.
They don't like us. We give them everything they want, and they think we're stupid. They think we're very stupid people. What we're doing for other countries, and they do nothing for us. What this man has done is absolutely criminal.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
This is the first
lights
presidential
off.
election since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. This morning, the court ruled on yet another abortion case, temporarily allowing emergency abortions to continue in Idaho, despite that state's restrictive ban. Former President Trump, you take credit for the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which returned the issue of abortion to the states.
Correct.
However, the federal government still plays a role in whether or not women have access to abortion pills. They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions. As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion bill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it. And if you look at this whole
That's pretty
question that you're asking,
blatant.
complex, but not really complex. 51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives, everybody wanted it back. Religious leaders. And what I did is I put 3 great Supreme Court justices on the court, and they happened to vote in favor of killing Roe v. Wade and moving it back to the states. This is something
Guns is like number
everybody
8,
wanted.
right?
You know, 10 years ago
Economy
or so, they
is
started
what's
talking about how
important,
many
and
weeks or how many
immigration,
this, getting into other
wars.
things. But every legal scholar throughout the world, the most respected, wanted it brought back to the states. I did that. Now the states are working it out. If you look at Ohio, it was a decision that was, an end result that was a little bit more liberal than you would have thought.
I don't think this is helping
Kansas, I would say
anybody.
the same thing. Texas is different. Florida is different. But they're all making their own decisions right now. And right now, the states control it.
Is he
the
getting
vote
talked
of
to
the
in his
people.
ear?
Like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions. I am a person that believes. And frankly, I think it's important to believe in the exceptions.
Oh, they
Some people,
took
you
him
have
off
to
the
follow
screen.
your heart.
It wasn't
Some people
helping
don't
anybody.
believe in that. But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think it's very important. Some people don't. Follow your heart. But you have to get elected.
I couldn't
also.
find anybody
And
that
because
wasn't
that has to
getting a
do with
shit
other
ton of
things. You
super
gotta get
chats for
elected.
watching the
problem they
presidents
have is
talk
they're
to each
radical
other.
because
So
they
if you want
will
to super chat me,
take the
go
life
for it.
of a
But I figured
child
I'd
in
just
the 8th month, the 9th
smack
month, and even
wise.
after birth. After birth,
Nobody
if you
wants a
look at
link,
the
but
former governor of Virginia, he was willing to
I
do
agree with
this.
Krabby.
He said, "We'll put
I
the
thought at
baby
first
aside,
that this guy
and
was
we'll
holding
determine
back
what we do with the
and
baby,"
that
meaning
he
we'll
was
kill the
stronger
baby.
than it appears.
What
There's
happened is we
nothing,
brought
there's no
it back to
advantage
the
for him to
states,
look
and the
weak right
country
now.
is now
And he does
coming
not look strong
together on
right
this
now.
issue. It's been a great thing.
I mean, seriously, tell me
President
how
Biden.
anybody
It's been
thinks
a
this
terrible
guy's
thing,
winning right
what
now.
you've done. The fact is that the vast majority of constitutional scholars supported Roe when it was decided. Supported Roe. And that's this idea that they're all against it is just ridiculous. And this is the guy who says the state should be able to have it. We're in a state where in 6 weeks, you don't even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor and have him decide on what your circumstances are, whether you need help. The idea that states are able to do this is a little like saying we're going to turn civil rights back to the states, let each state have a different rule. Look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral.
He sounds like he's
And
dying.
The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in.
They got to hate
Talk
Trump
about
pretty
that.
fucking
Here's the
bad to
deal.
want to have this
There's a
guy
lot of
repping the
young
country.
women to be raped by their in-laws, by their
Holy
spouses, brothers and sisters, it's just ridiculous.
Go on and on about that.
And they
Holy
can do
crap,
nothing
guy.
about it. And they try to arrest them when they cross state lines.
Thank you.
Oh,
There have
cut
been
him off.
many young women murdered by the same people he allows to come across our border. We have a border that's the most dangerous place anywhere in the world. Consider the most dangerous place anywhere in
Trump's
the world.
bringing it back to
And
the
he opened
immigration
it up, and
up
these
from
killers
one
are
of the
coming
least
into our country, and
important
they are raping
issues.
and killing women. And it's a terrible thing. As far as the abortion is concerned, it is now back with the states. The states are voting. In
And
many
he brings
cases,
it back to the abortion
it's
issue.
frankly a very liberal decision.
What
In
the
many
fuck is
cases, it's
this?
the opposite. But they're voting, and it's bringing it back to the vote of the people, which is what everybody wanted, including the founders, if they knew about this issue, which frankly they
It's
didn't.
interesting that they're
But
both
they would
looking
have
this way instead
everybody
of
wanted it brought
towards each
back.
other.
Ronald Reagan wanted it brought back. He wasn't able to get it. Everybody wanted it brought back, and
Has he
many
got something in his
presidents
ears?
have
Are they
tried to
listening
get
to
it
people
back.
right now?
I was the one to do it. And again, this
We're only
gives
going to
it the
get
vote
this
of the people,
head in shot.
and that's where
No
they wanted
American
it.
flags.
Every legal
All
scholar
it fucking
wanted
says
it
is
that way.
CNN everywhere.
Staying on the topic of abortion,
Assholes.
President Biden, 7 states. I'll let you do that.
Holy shit.
This is the same topic. 7 states have no legal restrictions on how far into a pregnancy a woman can obtain an abortion. Do you support any legal limits on how late a woman
Are you
should be
kidding
able
me?
to terminate a pregnancy?
I supported Roe v. Wade, which had 3 trimesters.
He's going to get
First
mad.
time is between the woman and the doctor. Second time is between the doctor and an extreme situation. The third time is between the doctor, between the woman and the state. The idea that the politicians, that the founders wanted the politicians to be the
I
ones
can
making
see this
decisions about
Regine
women's health
Biss face
is
type of
ridiculous.
shit
That's the
gets
last
annoying to
thing. No
people,
politician should be making that
but he
decision.
doesn't
A
look
doctor
like
should be
he's
making those decisions.
baffled.
That's how it
Great
should be
word.
run.
Yeah.
That's what you're going to do. And if I'm elected, I'm going to restore Roe v.
Trump
Wade.
just looks like he's got an attitude.
He can take the life of the baby in the 9th month and even after birth, because some states, Democrat run, take it after birth. Again, the former governor of Virginia, put the baby down, then we decide what to do with it. So he's willing to, as we say, rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month and kill the baby. Nobody wants that to happen, Democrat or Republican. Nobody wants it to happen.
That is simply not true.
Now they're
The
just
Roe
letting
v.
the
Wade
mics
does
on
not
again?
Provide for that.
They're letting the
That's
mics
not
on again.
circumstance.
Who's
Only woman's
interrupting
life is
who?
in danger. She's going to die. That's the only circumstance in which that can happen. But we are not for late-term abortion, period. Period.
Under Roe v. Wade, you have late-term abortion. You can do whatever you want, depending on the state. You can do whatever you want. We don't think that's a good thing. We think it's a radical thing. We think the Democrats are the radicals, not the Republicans.
For 51 years, that was the law. 51 years, constitutional scholarship said it was the right way to go. 51 years, and it was taken away because this
They
guy
don't give a shit.
was
They're just
very
letting them go right
conservative
back and
members on the
forth,
Supreme
interrupting
Court.
each other.
Takes
And what
credit
the
for
hell?
taking
There's
it
no
away.
minutes
What's he
here.
going to do?
What is this?
What's he going to do? In fact, if the MAGA Republicans, he gets elected, and the MAGA Republicans control the Congress, and they pass a universal ban on abortion, period, across the board at 6 weeks or 7 or 8 or 10 weeks, something very, very conservative. Is he going to sign that bill? I'll veto it. He'll sign it.
Thank you.
Let's turn now to the issue of immigration and border
Of course, they're
security.
going to
President
mute it
Biden,
after all
a record
that.
number of migrants have illegally crossed the southern border on your watch. Overwhelming border states and overburdening cities such as New York and Chicago, and in some cases causing real safety and security concerns. Given that, why should voters trust you to solve this crisis?
Because we worked very hard to get a bipartisan agreement that not only changed all of that, we made sure that we are in a situation where
Just last
there
week.
was no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. Significantly, by the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position. In addition to that, we find ourselves in a situation where
I don't know any
when he
border
was
patrol
president,
that
he was
endorsed
taking,
him.
separating babies from their mothers, putting them in cages, making sure the families were separated. That's not the right way to go. What I've done since I've changed
Did
the
he
law,
even get
what's
any
happened,
new?
I've changed it in the way
playbook?
that now you're in a situation where
That's
there are
fucking
40%
old.
fewer people coming across the border legally. It's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban
that's bold.
on the total initiative relative to what we can do with more border patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. We had the safest border in the history
That's a
of our
burn
country.
right there.
The border, all he
That's
had
a
to do
burn.
was leave it. All he had to do was leave it. He decided to open up our border, open up our country to people that are from prisons, people that are from mental institutions, insane asylum, terrorists. We have the largest number of terrorists coming into our country right now. All terrorists, all over the world, not just
Hey, if
in
you
South
want
America.
to,
all
if
over
you want
the
to
world.
match
They come
super chat
from the
for
Middle
super
East,
chat
everywhere.
with the
All
other
over the
chats
world
that
they're
are out
pouring
there,
in.
horking this
And this
data,
guy
then
just left it open.
we accept
And
super
he didn't
chats.
need legislation because I didn't have legislation. I said, close the border. We had the safest border in history. In that final couple of months of my presidency, we had, according to Border Patrol, who
What
is
the fuck
great,
is
and by the way, who
this?
endorsed me for president, but I won't say that, but they endorsed me for president. Brandon, just speak to him. But look, we had the safest border in history. Now we have the worst border in history. There's never been anything like it. And people are dying all over the place, including the people that are coming up in
Thank you, President
caravans.
Trump. President Biden?
The only terrorist who's done anything across the border is one who came along and killed three, under his administration, killed an Al-Qaeda person come in his administration,
Holy
killed
shit.
3 American soldiers. Killed 3 American soldiers. That's the only terrorist that's there. I'm not saying that no terrorists ever got through, but the idea they're emptying their prisons, we're welcoming these people. That's simply not true. There's no data to support what he said. Once again, he's exaggerating. He's lying.
President Trump, staying on the topic of
If you
immigration,
just take
you said that
Biden's
you're gonna
words,
carry out
okay,
the largest
but he
domestic
looks like he's
deportation
about to
operation in American history.
pee
unquote.
himself or
Does
cry
that
or
mean that
something.
you will
What the hell?
deport every undocumented immigrant in
He's been
America,
a
including those
politician
who
an
have jobs, including
entire
those whose
lifetime, and that's
spouses
his
are
face when
citizens,
he's
including
responding to
those
this
who have
guy?
lived here for decades? And if so, how will you do it?
Just 1 second. He said we killed 3 people. The people we killed are al-Baghdadi and Soleimani, the 2 greatest terrorists, biggest terrorists anywhere in the world. And it had a huge impact on everything, not just border, on everything. He's the one that killed people with the bad water, including hundreds of thousands of people dying and also killing our citizens when they come in. We are living right now in a rat's nest. They're killing our people in New York, in California, in every state in the union because we don't have borders anymore.
Oh, thank
Every
you very
state
much.
is now
Appreciate
a
it.
border. And because of his ridiculous, insane, and very stupid policies, people are coming in and they're killing our citizens
Come here.
at a level that
paid.
we've never seen.
Got
We
paid,
call
my
it
friend.
migrant crime. I call it Biden migrant crime. They're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen before. And you're reading it like these 3 incredible young girls over the last few days. One of them, I just spoke to the mother, and he just had the funeral for this girl, 12 years old. This is horrible what's taken place. What's taken place in our country, we're literally an uncivilized country now. He doesn't want it to be. He just doesn't know. He opened the borders. Nobody's ever seen anything like. And we have to get a lot of these people out, and we have to get them out fast because they're going to destroy our country. Just take a look at where they're living. They're living in luxury hotels in New York City and other places. Our veterans are on the street. They're dying because he doesn't care about our veterans. He doesn't care. He doesn't like the military at all.
Nope.
And he doesn't care about our veterans. Nobody did worse. I had the highest approval rating for veterans taking care of the VA. He has the worst. He's gotten rid of all the things that I approved. Choice that I got through Congress. All of the different things I approved, they abandoned. We had by far the highest, and now it's down in less than half because he's done all these great things that we did. And I think he did it just because I approved it, which is crazy. But he has killed so many people at our border by allowing all of these people to come in. And it's a very sad day in America.
President Biden, you have
I'm glad you got
Every
that
single
in.
thing he said is a lie. Every single one. For example, veterans are a hell of a lot better off since they passed the PACT Act. 1 million of them now have insurance, and their families have it. Their families have it because what happened, whether it was Agent Orange or
Nobody else is
Burns,
given
they're all being
payments for super chats.
He opposed that.
Yeah,
We're
okay.
also in a situation where we have great respect for veterans. My
Thank you for the
son
super chat.
spent a year in Iraq, living right next to one of those burn pits, came back with.
Did he just say his son spent a year in Iraq?
I was recently in France for D-Day, and I spoke all about those heroes that died. I went to the World War II cemetery, World War I cemetery he refused to go to. He was standing with his 4-star general, and he told me, he said, I don't want to go in there because they're a bunch of losers and suckers. My son was not a loser, was not a sucker. You're the sucker. You're the loser.
Oh, man.
President Trump.
First of all, that was a made-up quote, suckers and losers. They made it up. It was in a third-rate magazine that's failing, like many of these magazines. He made that up. He put it in commercials. We've notified him. We had 19 people that said I didn't say it. And think of this. Who would say I'm at a cemetery or I'm talking about our veterans? Because nobody's taking better care. I'm so glad this came up, and he brought it up. There's nobody that's taken better care of our soldiers than I have. To think that I would, in front of generals and others, say suckers and losers. We have 19 people that said it was never said by me. It was made up by him, just like Russia was made up, just like the 51 intelligence agents are made up, just like the new thing with the 16 economists are talking. It's the same thing. 51 intelligence agents said that the laptop was
This
Russia
is better than
disinformation.
Hillary, isn't it?
wasn't.
Let me
that
make a
came from
poll.
his son Hunter. It wasn't Russia disinformation. He made up the suckers and losers, so he should apologize to me right now.
4-star general standing to your side who was on your staff who said you said it, period. That's number one. And number two, the idea that I have to apologize to you for anything along the line. We've done more for veterans than any president has in American history.
He gets pretty offended.
American history. And they now are in their family. The only sacred obligation we have as a country is to care for our veterans when they come home and their families.
All right, we're starting the
and equip
first
them when
poll
they go to
here.
war. That's what we're doing. That's what the VA is doing now. They're doing more for veterans than ever before in our history.
All right. Thank you so much.
The topic of foreign policy. I want to begin with Russia's war against Ukraine, which is now in its third year. Former President Trump, Russian President Vladimir Putin says he'll only end this war if Russia keeps the Ukrainian territory it has already claimed and Ukraine abandons its bid to join NATO. Are Putin's terms acceptable to you?
First of all, our veterans and our soldiers can't stand this guy. They can't stand him. They think he's the worst commander-in-chief, if that's what you call him, that we've ever had. They can't stand him. So let's get that straight. And they like me more than just about any of them. And that's based on every single bit of information. As far as Russia and Ukraine, if we had a real president, a president that knew, that was respected by Putin, he would have never invaded Ukraine. A lot of people are dead right now, much more than people know. You know, they talk about numbers. You can double those numbers, maybe triple those numbers.
Co-hosts.
He did nothing to stop it. In fact, I think he encouraged Russia from going in. I'll tell you what happened. He was so bad with Afghanistan. It was such a horrible embarrassment, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, that when Putin watched that and he saw the incompetence, that he should have fired those generals, like I fired the one that you mentioned. And so he's got no love lost, but he should have fired those generals. No general got fired for the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, Afghanistan, where we left billions of dollars of equipment behind.
We have a poll
We lost
going
13 beautiful soldiers, and 38 soldiers were obliterated. And by the way, we left people behind too. We left American citizens behind. When Putin saw that, he said, you know what? I think we're going to go in and maybe take was his dream. I talked to him about it. His
So,
dream. The difference is
which one's better, this
never
one
would have
or the
invaded
Hillary debate
Ukraine. Never.
in
Just like
2012?
Israel would have never been invaded in a million years by Hamas. You know why? Because Iran was broke with me. I wouldn't let anybody do business with them. They ran out of money. They were broke. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for anything. No money for terror. That's why you had no terror at all during my administration. This place, the whole world is blowing up under him.
Oh, I forgot. Oh, you mean because they were talking back and forth with the open
I've never
mic?
heard so much
Yeah.
malarkey in my whole life.
Malarkey.
The fact of the matter is that we're in a situation where, let's take the last point first. Iran
He's
attacked
getting
American
stronger.
troops, caused
Maybe not.
for a number of these troops, and he did nothing about it. Recently, not when he was president. Here they attacked. He said they're just having headaches. That's all it is. He didn't do a thing when the attack took place, number one. Number 2, we got over 100,000 Americans and others out of Afghanistan during that airlift. Number 3, we found ourselves in a situation where, if you take a look at what Trump
What's he
did in
reading?
Ukraine, this guy told Trump, do whatever you want, and do whatever you want. And that's exactly what Trump did.
He got a little burst of energy there, didn't he?
Do whatever you want. And he went in. Listen to what he said when he went in. He was going to take Kyiv in 5 days, remember? Because it's part of the old Soviet Union. That's what he wanted to reestablish. Kyiv. And he, in fact, didn't do it at all. He wasn't able to get it done. And they've lost thousands and thousands of troops, 500,000 troops.
President Trump,
I
if we
never
come back
said
to you
that.
for 1 minute,
Wow.
I just want to go back to my original
Is he
question, which is,
Gloating and
are
500,000
Putin's
people
terms
dying?
acceptable to you? Keeping the
No, they're
territory
not
in Ukraine.
acceptable. No, they're not acceptable. But look, this is a war that never should have started. If we had a leader in this war, he led everybody along. He's given $200 billion now or more to Ukraine. He's given $200
does anybody
billion.
think this
That's
guy's
a
winning?
lot of money. I don't think there's ever been anything like it. Every time that Zelensky comes to this country, he walks away with $60 billion. He's the greatest salesman ever. And I'm not knocking him. I'm not knocking anything. I'm only saying the money that we're spending on this war, and we shouldn't be spending, it should have never happened. I will have that war settled between Putin and Zelensky as president-elect before I take office on January 20th. I'll have that war settled. People being killed so needlessly, so stupidly, and I will get it settled, and I'll get it
He looks
settled
like he's
fast before
freaking
I
out,
take
right?
office.
You
President
know,
Biden, you have a minute.
the fact is that Putin is a war criminal. He's killed thousands and thousands of people. And he has made one thing clear. He wants to reestablish what was part of the Soviet Empire, not just a piece. He wants all of Ukraine. That's what he wants. And then you think he'll stop there? Do you think he'll stop when if he takes Ukraine? What do you think happens to Poland? What do you think of Belarus? What do you think happens to those NATO countries? And so if you want a war, you ought to
I'm taking
find
back
out what he's
everything
gonna
I thought
do,
about
because if in fact
this
he
guy being
does what he
stronger.
says and walks
This guy's
away,
freaking
by
out,
the
I
way,
think.
all that money we give Ukraine and from weapons we make here in the United States, we give them the weapons, not the money at this point. And our NATO allies have produced as much funding for Ukraine as
Does
we
he
have.
not understand
why
that his
that's why we're
base is the
strong.
one that's against the
Thank you.
military-industrial
Moving on to the Middle
complex?
East.
What the fuck?
In October,
How is that
Hamas
supposed to win in an
attacked
election?
Israel, killing more than 1,000 people and taking hundreds of hostages. Among those
Where's the
held and
American
thought
flag?
to still be alive
CNN.
are 5 Americans. Israel's response has killed thousands of Palestinians and created a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. President Biden, you've put forward a proposal to resolve this conflict, but so far Hamas has not released the remaining hostages, and Israel is continuing its military offensive in Gaza. So what additional leverage will you use to get Hamas and Israel to end the war? You have 2
Go vote in the
minutes.
poll. Go vote
Number
in the
one.
poll.
Everyone from the United Nations Security Council straight through to the G7 to the Israelis and Netanyahu himself have endorsed the plan I put forward, which has 3 stages to it. The first stage is trade the hostages for a ceasefire. Second phase is a ceasefire with additional conditions. The third phase is the end of the war. The only one who wants the war to continue is Hamas, number one. They're the only ones standing out. We're still pushing hard to get them to accept. In the meantime, what's happened in Israel, we're trying to say the only thing I've denied Israel was 2,000-pound bombs. They don't work very well in populated areas. They kill a lot of
And
innocent
small
people.
arms. You
We're
can't
providing
export
Israel all
small
the
arms, you
weapons they
fucking
need
liar.
when they need them. And by the way, I'm the guy that organized the world against Iran when they had a full-blown intercontinental.
You're the dude who was vice president when they sent him a fucking container of cash
No one Israeli was accidentally
that
killed.
they used to buy a
and
shit ton
it
of fucking
stopped.
missiles from
We
Russia.
saved Israel.
Or maybe
we are
China.
the biggest producer of support for Israel of anyone in the world. And so they're two different things.
We're the
Hamas
biggest producer
cannot
of support
allow
for
it to
Israel.
continue. We continue to send our experts
Eloquent.
and our intelligence people as to how they can get Hamas like we did bin Laden. You don't have to do it. And by the way, they've been greatly weakened, Hamas, greatly weakened, and they should be. They should be eliminated. But you've got to be careful for what using certain weapons among population centers.
Wow.
Just going back to Ukraine for 1 second.
Didn't even bother to
We have
reply
an
to that.
ocean separating us. The European nations together have spent
Nothing in their
100
ears,
billion,
huh?
or maybe more than that, less than us. Why doesn't he call them and say, you got to put up your money like I did with NATO? I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. The Secretary General of NATO said Trump did the most incredible job I've ever seen. They wouldn't have any, they were going out of business. We were spending almost 100% of the money was paid by us. He didn't do that. He's getting all, you got to ask these people to put up the money. We're over $100 billion more spent, and it has a bigger impact on them because of location, because we have an ocean in between. You got to ask them. As far as Israel and Hamas, Israel's the one that wants to go. He said the only one that wants to keep going is Hamas. Actually, Israel is the one, and you should let him go and let him finish the job. He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian, but they don't like him because he's a very bad Palestinian. He's a weak one.
President Biden, you have a minute.
I've never heard so much foolishness. This is a guy who wants to get out of NATO. You're going to stay in NATO? He's going to pull out of NATO. The idea that we have our
Who the
strength
fuck
lies in our
is
alliances
against that?
as well. It may be a big ocean, but we're ever able to avoid a war in Europe, a major war in Europe? What happens if, in fact, you have Putin continue to go into NATO? We have an Article 5 agreement. Attack on one is attack on all. You want to start the nuclear war he keeps talking about, go ahead. Let Putin go in and control Ukraine and then move on to Poland and other places. You see what happens then. He has no idea what the hell he's talking about. And by the way, I got 50 other nations around the world to support Ukraine, including Japan and South Korea, because they understand that this kind of dislocation has a serious threat to the whole world peace. No major war in Europe has ever been able to be contained just to Europe.
President Trump, just to follow up, would you support the creation of an independent Palestinian state in order to achieve peace in the region?
I'd have to see, but before we do that, the problem we have is that we spend all the money. So they kill us on trade. I made great trade deals with the European nations because if you add them up, they're about the same size economically. Their economy is about the same size as the United States. And they were no cars, they don't want anything that we have, but we're supposed to take their cars, their food, their everything, their agriculture. I changed that. But the big thing I changed is they don't want to pay. And the only reason that he can play games with NATO is because I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. I said, and he's right about this, I said, no, I'm not going to support NATO if you don't pay. They asked me that question, would you guard us against Russia? At a very secret meeting of the 28 states at that time, nations at that time. And they said, no, if you don't pay, I won't do that. And you know what happened? Billions and billions of dollars came flowing in the next day and the next months. But now we're in the same position. We're
Now
paying
Biden's
everybody's
spending all
bills.
that fucking money.
Let's turn to the issue of democracy. Former President Trump, I want to ask you about January 6, 2021. After you rallied your supporters that day, some of them stormed the Capitol to stop the constitutionally mandated counting of electoral votes. As president, you swore an oath to, quote, preserve, protect, and defend, unquote, the Constitution. What do you say to voters who believe that you violated that oath through your actions and inaction on January 6th and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I don't think too many believe that. And let me tell you about January 6th. On January 6th, we had a great border. Nobody coming through, very few. On January 6th, we were energy independent. On January 6th, we had the lowest taxes ever. We had the lowest regulations ever. On January 6th, we were respected all over the world. All over the world, we were respected. And then he comes in, and we're now laughed at. We're like a bunch of stupid people. That what happened to the United States' reputation under this man's leadership is horrible, including weaponization, which I'm sure at some point you'll be talking about, where he goes after his political opponent because he can't beat him fair and square.
You have 80 seconds left. My question was, what do you say to those voters who believe that you violated your constitutional oath through your actions and inaction on January 6, 2021, and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I didn't say that to anybody. I said peacefully and patriotically. And Nancy Pelosi, if you just watched the news from 2 days ago, on tape to her daughter, who's a documentary filmmaker, they say, but she's saying, oh, no, it's my responsibility. I was responsible for this. Because I offered her 10,000 soldiers or National Guard, and she turned them down. And the mayor in writing, by the way, the mayor in writing turned it down, the mayor of D.C. They turned it down. I offered 10,000 because I could see, I had virtually nothing to do. They asked me to go make a speech. I could see what was happening. Everybody was saying they're going to be there on January 6th. They're going to be there. And I said, you know what? There's a lot of people coming. You could feel it. You could feel it too, and you could feel it. And I said, they ought to have some National Guard or whatever. And I offered it to her. And she now admits that she turned it down. And it was the same day she was, I don't know, she can't be very happy with her daughter because it made her into a liar. She said, I take full responsibility for January 6th.
President Biden?
Look, he encouraged those folks to go up to the Capitol Hill, number one. I sat in the dining room off the Oval Office. He sat there for 3 hours watching, begging, being begged by his vice president and a number of his colleagues on the Republican side as well to do something, to call for a stop, to end it. Instead, they talked about these people being patriots and great patrons of America. In fact, he says he'll now forgive them for what they've done. They've been convicted. He says he wants to commute their sentences and say that, no, he went to every single court in the nation. I don't know how many cases, scores of cases, including the Supreme Court. And they said, no, this guy.
What is he talking about?
Responsible for doing what was done. He did do a damn thing. And these people should be in jail. And they should be the ones who are being held accountable. And he wants to let them all out. And now he says if he loses again, such a whiner that he is, that it could be a bloodbath.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Bloodbath? What?
What they've done to some people that are so innocent, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. What you have done, how you've destroyed the lives of so many people. When they ripped down Portland, when they ripped down many other cities, you go to Minnesota, Minneapolis, what they've done there with the fires all over the city. If I didn't bring in the National Guard, that city would have been destroyed. When you look at all of they took over big chunks of Seattle. I was all set to bring in the National Guard. They heard that, they saw them coming, and they left immediately. What he said about this whole subject is so off. Peacefully patriotic. One other thing, the Unselect Committee, which is basically two horrible Republicans that are all gone now out of office, and Democrats, all Democrats, they destroyed and deleted all of the information they found because they found out we were right. We were right. And they deleted and destroyed all of the information. They should go to jail for that. If a Republican did that, they'd go to jail.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, I want to give you a minute.
The only person in the state
he
who's
said
a
either.
convicted felon is the man I'm looking at right now. And the fact of the matter is, what he's telling
Did
you
he
is
look at his
simply not
son?
true. The fact is that there was no effort on his part to stop what was going on up in
Oh, man, I'm getting the scam. I'm getting the
Capitol Hill.
shaft.
And all those people, every one of those who are convicted, turned over desks, turned them over statues. The idea that those people are patriots, come on. When I asked him those first two debates we had, the debates we had first time around, I said, will you denounce the Proud Boy? He said, no, I'll tell them to stand by. The idea he's refusing, will you denounce these guys? Will you denounce the people we're talking about now? You denounce the people who attacked that Capitol? What are you going to do?
I'm going to give you a minute, President Trump, for a follow-up question I have. After a jury convicted you of 34 felonies last month, you said if reelected, you would, quote, have every right to go after, unquote, your political opponents. You just talked about members of the Select Committee on January 6th going to jail. Your main political opponent is standing on stage with you tonight. Can you clarify exactly what it means about you feeling you have every right to go after your political opponents?
Well, I said my retribution is going to be success. We're going to make this country successful again, because right now it's a failing nation. My retribution is going to be success. But when he talks about a convicted felon, his son is a convicted felon at a very high level. His son is convicted, going to be convicted probably numerous other times. Should have been convicted before, but his Justice Department let the statute of limitations lapse on the most important things. But he could be a convicted felon as soon as he gets out of office. Joe could be a convicted felon with all of the things that he's done. He's done horrible things. All of the death caused at the border, telling
Does an innocent person do this?
That we're going to want $1 billion or you change the prosecutor. Otherwise, you're not getting $1 billion. If I ever said that, that's quid pro quo. That we're not going to do anything. We're not going to give you $1 billion unless you change your prosecutor having to do with the son. This man is a criminal. This man, you're lucky. You're lucky. I did nothing wrong. We'd have a system that was rigged and disgusting. I did nothing wrong.
Thank you, President Trump. President
Anything
Biden,
in
you
the
have
ears?
said, I'm coming right to you, sir. Well, you want to respond? Go ahead. I'll give you a minute to respond.
The idea that I did anything wrong relative to what you're talking about is outrageous. It's simply a lie, number one. Number two, the idea that you have a right to seek retribution against any American just because you're president is wrong. It's simply wrong. No president's ever spoken like that before. No president in history has spoken like that before.
He's like Clint
Number
Eastwood.
three, the crimes that you are still charged with, and think of all the civil penalties you have. How many billions of dollars do you owe in civil penalties for molesting a woman in public, for doing a whole range of things, of having sex with a porn star on the night while your wife was pregnant? I mean, what are you talking about? You have the morals of an alley cat.
Give your minute, sir.
I didn't have sex with a porn star, number one. Number two, that was a case that was started and moved. They moved a high-ranking official, a DOJ, into the Manhattan DA's office to start that case. That case is going to be appealed and won.
Nothing like
They had a
I'm
very,
guilty, but
terrible
you had
judge,
sex with
a
somebody.
horrible judge, Democrat. The prosecutor were all high-ranking Democrats, appointed people, and both the civil and the criminal. He basically
This
went
is the
after
bullshit
his
ping
political
pong that's
opponent
useless.
because he
None
thought
of
it was
them are
going to damage
following
me. But
through
when
in
the public
anything.
found out about these cases, because they understand it better than he does, he has no idea what these cases are.
Is this
But
guy
when
getting
when they
fed?
found out about these cases, you know
Is
what
there
they
something in
did?
that ear?
My poll numbers went up, way up. You know that because you're reporting it. And
I
we
would
took
think
in
they'd
more
tell him
money
to
in the
look
last
over
2
here
weeks
instead
than
of just
we've
off
ever
into
taken in
space if
the
they were
history
telling him
of
stuff,
any
right?
campaign. I don't think any
Look over
campaign
there.
has
Don't
ever
keep looking
taken
off at the
hundreds
ground.
of millions of dollars came pouring in because the public knows it's a scam and it's a guy that's after his political opponent because he can't win fair and square.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, quote, Donald Trump and his MAGA Republicans are determined to destroy American democracy. Do you believe that the tens of millions of Americans who are likely to vote for President Trump will be voting against American democracy?
The more they know about what he's done, yes. The more
Holy
they know
shit.
about what he's done. And there's a lot more coming. He's got a lot of cases down the road coming out. He's got a whole range of issues he has to face. I don't know what the juries will do, but I do know the fact that
Makes me want to cough.
you hear any president say that I'm going to seek retribution? You ever hear any president say that I thought Hitler had some good ideas? What got me involved to run in the first place after my son had
Did
died
he just say?
in Iraq, because of Iraq, I said I wasn't going to run again until I saw what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. People coming out of the woods carrying swastikas on torches, and singing the same anti-Semitic bile they sang when back in Germany. And the young woman got killed. I spoke to the mother, and they asked him. They said, "What do you think of those people? The ones who got killed, the one who tried to stop him, and the ones," he said, "I think they're fine people on both sides." What American president would ever say Nazis?
Holy
coming out
crap,
of
that's
fields
such a
carrying
fake
torches,
ass thing to have to go back
singing
to.
anti-Semitic bile, carrying swastikas were fine people. This is the guy who says Hitler's done some good things. I'd like to know what they are. The good things Hitler's done, that's what he said. This guy has no sense of American democracy.
President Trump.
What
Jake,
the fuck was
both
all
of you
that?
know that story has been totally wiped out because when you see the sentence, it said 100% exoneration on this. So he just keeps it going. He says he ran because of Charlottesville. He didn't run because of Charlottesville. He ran because it was his last chance. He's not equipped to be president. You know it, and I know it. It's ridiculous. We have a debate. We're trying to justify his presidency. His presidency is, without question, the worst president, the worst presidency in the history of our country. We shouldn't be having a debate about it. There's nothing to debate. He made up the Charlottesville
When you get
story.
told that as
And
president, I
he's
expect a
bumped all over
different
the
look on
place.
your face
Every
than
anchor has every reasonable
did I
anchor
turn off the
has
oven
debunked
last
it.
night?
And just the other day, it came out where it was fully debunked. It's a nonsense story. He knows that, and he didn't run because of Charlottesville. He used that as an excuse to run.
President Biden?
And debunk. It happened. All you have to do is listen to what was said at the time.
Yeah, just look at
And
the
idea
transcript,
that
you fucking liar.
somehow
That's
the only
such
reason
a
I ran.
such a
I ran
weak
because I
thing to
thought if I
stand
let
on.
this guy get elected. If he thought they were good people coming out of that forest, carrying those woods, carrying those torches, then he didn't deserve to be president. Didn't deserve to be president at all. And the idea that he's talking about all this being fabricated, we saw it with our own eyes. We saw what happened on January 6th. We saw the people breaking through windows. We saw people occupying his own vice president. Look, there's a reason why 40 of his 44 top cabinet officers refused to endorse him this time. His vice president hasn't endorsed him this time. So why? Why? They know him well. They serve with him. Why are they not endorsing him?
Why?
Thank you, President Biden. We're going to be right back with more from the CNN.
Oh, good.
presidential
Let's have a
debate.
commercial in the middle of the fucking thing. What the hell? Commercial. He does look like he's about to cry. Like, nothing about this guy is presidential. Hey, they're hearing you. You better shut up. You're ruining the debate for everybody. Commercial break in progress. Come here. Come here. Come up 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 here. Come here. You want any more biscuits? Come up here. You won't come up.
Why do you have Marilox if you don't get constipated? It's literally how I've made friends.
Oh my god.
And a couple others. Huh, because women know we have them.
Lame. Who's winning? So, is it pretty much Trump's out of here? There's no way Trump can recover from this one. The first 47 minutes of this one, Trump, you know what I'm saying? Too bad. I had no idea Biden had it in him. He came out swinging, and it's like watching a political fighting match. Oh, that's true. He's going to be able to go drink some Gatorade or something. Come here. Come here, my little friend. Come up here. They're looking at you. They're looking at you on the TV. It's sweet. What happened to it? No, it's still a commercial over here. So go ahead and give us your thoughts. What do you think? Who's winning? Puppy has turned his back on this whole thing. I'm gonna have to put him back down on the ground. He doesn't like being up here when it's hot. Yeah, I'm putting you back down. We brought you up to be looked at on the video, and now you're going back down. Ugh. Maybe I should get a cooler going. This isn't a debate, it's a playground argument. I think I could understand where you're coming from on that one. It doesn't, like, I wish there was a way to, like, visually track this, because, like, you know, the first argument or the first question came out, Biden had 3 minutes, Trump came in and said something, but then he said something else, and then Biden went off on that tangent, and then the next question, a couple of these, they just dropped the ball. Like, Biden went off and off on abortion, and Trump was like, yeah, abortion's the states, but let's talk about how much you suck on something else, like the border, I think. And then eventually they got to immigration later. So I'm curious to see if there's some sort of a way to measure each important topic and how often the candidates went to that topic, and then how much time altogether was in the topic. If you came up here, you get biscuits. Nobody wants to give you biscuits when you're sitting on the floor. See? I never thought I'd hear in a presidential debate an argument if someone screwed a porn star. Well, Biden brought that up. You know he's going to bring up that. That's his base. I would say Trump telling Hillary she's going to jail was the thing that I thought was the most crazy. But we're all idiots, literally, because none of us pay attention to the old days. But I'm pretty sure they had fights in the old days. Like when they would get on trains and go around the country, they'd fucking they were dicks. Like they would fight each other and shit. So I'm pretty sure this is super mild. I think it's a school ground argument because of how weak it is also. I mean, Trump looks like a superstar next to this guy, but because this guy is just so
Families
weak.
still earn far less than white families. Black mothers are still 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes.
He's writing shit
And
down
Black
now.
Americans
He's
are
wearing a
in prison
flag.
at
Holy
5
shit.
times the rate
Holy
of
shit.
white Americans.
How many people is he pissing off
What do you
wearing
say
that
to
flag?
Black voters who are disappointed that you haven't made more progress?
They acknowledge they made a lot of progress, number one. The fact of the matter is, there's more small Black businesses that have been started than any time in history. Number two, the wages of Black unemployment is the lowest level it's been in a long, long time. Number three, we're providing housing for Black Americans and dealing with the segregation that exists among these corporations that collude to keep people out of their houses. And in addition to that, we find that the impact of the choice.
Now he wants back up. Oh, look at him running back up as soon as that bag opens.
Is incredibly difficult. When we did the first major piece of legislation that passed, I was able to reduce Black child care costs. I cut them in half. We got to make sure we provide for child care costs. We got to make sure, because when you provide those child care protections, you increase the economic growth because more people are in the job market. So there's more to be done, considerably more to be done. But we've done.
Thanks for the super chat.
I'm not waking up and they know it.
You have 49 seconds left. What do you say to Black voters who are disappointed with the progress so far?
I say I don't blame them for being disappointed. Inflation is still hurting them badly. For example, I provided for the idea that any Black family, first-time home buyer, should get a $10,000 tax credit to be able to buy their first home, so they can get started. I made sure
$10,000.
all those Black
Wow,
families and
that's
Black individuals
so helpful
provided
on a
$300,000
$300,000 home. I guess it's something,
ballooning, that if they were engaged in nursing,
but it's something about having socialism.
anything having to do with volunteerism. If they paid their bills for 10 years and their student debt, all the rest is forgiven after 10 years. Millions have benefited from that. And we're going to do a whole lot more
You get that thing?
for Black families.
Thank you, President Trump.
And he caused the inflation. He's caused the inflation. And he's right, it's been very bad. He caused the inflation, and it's killing Black families and Hispanic families and just about everybody. It's killing people. They can't buy groceries anymore. They can't. You look at the cost of food where it's doubled, tripled, and quadrupled. They can't live. They're not living anymore. He caused this inflation. I gave him a country with essentially no inflation. It was perfect. It was so good. All he had to do is leave it alone. He destroyed it with his Green New Scam and all this money that's being thrown out the window. He caused inflation. As sure as you're sitting there, the fact is that his big kill on the Black people is the millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're taking Black jobs now, and it could be 18, it could be 19, and even 20 million people.
What the fuck
They're
are
taking
Black jobs?
and they're taking Hispanic jobs, and you haven't seen it yet, but you're going to see something that's going to be the
That's
worst
going to come
in our history.
back. What the
Thank
fuck
you,
is Black
President
jobs?
There was no inflation when I became president. You know why? The economy was flat on its back. 50% unemployment.
Did I miss that?
Decimated the economy. Absolutely decimated the economy. That's why
Decimated
there's
the
no inflation.
economy. What
at the
the
time.
fuck?
There were no jobs.
1984
Thousands
shit
of millions
is
of
this?
jobs for individuals who are in all communities, including minority communities. We made sure that they have health insurance. We have covered, the ACA has, I made sure that there were $8,000 per person in the family get written off for health care. This guy wants to try 50 times. He wants to get rid of the ACA again. And they're going to try again. That's the position where the idea that we're not doing anything. We put more police on the street than any administration has. He wants to cut the cops. We provide.
He wants to cut the cops.
Making sure people have a shot to make it. There's a lot going on, but in inflation, He caused it by his tremendous amount.
Are we supposed to accept this fucking sentence structure?
Thank
What
you.
the
Another
fuck?
persistent challenge is the climate crisis. 2023 was
This is
the
the presidential
hottest year in
debate.
recorded
You can't
history,
fucking
and
speak a
communities
word, a
across the
sentence
country are
in
confronting the
fucking
devastating effects of extreme heat,
completely.
intensifying wildfires, stronger hurricanes, and rising sea levels. Former President Trump, you've vowed to end your opponent's climate initiatives, but will you take
Did I
any
miss
action
Green New
as
Scam?
president
I guess
to
I missed
slow
that.
the
That would have been a
climate
good one to
crisis?
Let me
hear.
just go back to what he said about the police, how close the police are to him. Almost every police group in the nation from every state is supporting Donald J. Trump. Almost every police group. And what he's done to the black population is horrible, including the fact that for 10 years he called them super predators. We can't, in the 1990s, we can't forget that. Super predators was his name. And he called it to them, and they've taken great offense at it. And now they see it happening. But when they see what I did for criminal justice reform and
Damn,
for
I
the
did say
historically black colleges and universities, where I funded them and got them all funded, and the opportunity zones with Tim, as you know, Tim Scott was incredible. He did a great job. Great senator from South Carolina. He came to me with the idea.
Is he
and it was a
listening
great
to
idea.
somebody?
It's one of the most
Is there something
successful
in there?
economic
Like,
development
are they
acts
listening to
ever
people
in the
right now?
country. Opportunity zones. And the biggest beneficiary are blacks. And that's why
It's 40.
We
Well,
have
he got
the
to go
best
sit
numbers
down
with
during
them
the
in-
break, I guess.
maybe ever, they're saying ever. I read this morning where ever, the best numbers. He's lost much of the
There's a
black
poll over here.
population because he's done a horrible job for black people. He's also done a horrible job for Hispanics. But wait till you see these millions of people pouring into our country, and they're going to take the jobs, and it's already started, and you haven't seen anything yet. It's a disaster.
38 seconds left. President Trump, will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
So I want absolutely immaculate clean water, and I want absolutely
Nice.
clean air, and we had it. We had H2O. We had the best numbers ever, and we were using all forms of energy, all forms, everything. And yet, during my 4 years, I had the best environmental numbers ever. And my top environmental people gave me that statistic just before I walked on the stage, actually.
I don't know where the hell he's been. The idea that anything he said is true. I passed the most extensive climate change legislation in history.
Oh my
In
gosh,
history.
that was
We find
amazing.
ourselves, and by the way, black colleges. I came up with $15 billion for HBCUs,
I did the
historic
most-
black universities and colleges,
Oh my god.
because they don't have the kind of contributors that they have to build these laboratories and the like. Any black student is capable in college of doing any white student can do. He doesn't have the money, but now they'll be able to get those jobs in high tech. We're in a situation where the idea that he is claiming to have done something that had cleanest water, he hadn't done a damn thing for the environment. He pulled out of the Paris Peace Accord, Climate Accord. I immediately joined it because if we reach 1.5 degrees Celsius at any one point, there's no way back. The only existential threat to humanity is climate change. And he didn't do a damn thing about it. He must undo all that I've done.
The Paris Accord was going to cost us $1 trillion, and China nothing, and Russia nothing, and India nothing. It was a ripoff of the United States. And I ended it because I didn't want to waste that money because they treat us horribly. We were the only ones. It was costing us money. Nobody else was paying into it. And it was a disaster. But everything that he said just now, I'll give you an example. I heard him say before insulin. I'm the one that got the insulin down for the seniors. I took care of the seniors. What he's doing is destroying all of our medical programs because the migrants coming in, they want everybody. And look, I have the biggest heart on the stage. I guarantee you that. And I want to take care of people. But we're destroying our country. They're taking over our schools, our hospitals, and they're going to be taking over Social Security. He is destroying Social Security, Medicare,
You
and
got a poll
Medicaid.
going over here. Is this one better than Hillary? The Hillary debate?
The idea is that we, in fact, we were the only ones of consequence. We're not members of the Paris Accord. How can we do anything? We're not able to. The United States can't get us under control. One of the largest.
Where is the
countries in world,
sentence here, guy?
Number one, we're making significant progress. By 2035,
You're just saying fucking words, and they keep
We've
even
made-
their
we've made
teleprompter
significant
shit or
progress.
whatever, their
We're continuing
transcription.
progress.
shows that there's
Corps.
just
There's
random
thousands of young
periods
people
and
learn
shit.
how to deal with them, just like Peace Corps. And we're moving in directions that are going to significantly change the elements of cause of pollution. But the idea that he claims that he has the biggest heart up here and he's really concerned about pollution and about climate.
Yeah, finish a
I've
thought.
not seen any
Exactly.
indication of that. And by the way, with regard to prescription drugs, one company agreed that they would reduce the price to $35, which I was calling for, one, voluntarily. I made sure every company in the world, every pharmaceutical company, cannot have to pay.
Thank you.
And by the way,
So every day, millions of Americans struggle just to make ends meet. For many older Americans, Social
Nice.
Security
And by the
provides a
way,
critical lifeline. President Biden, if nothing is done to Social Security, seniors will see their benefits cut in just over 10 years. Will you name tonight one specific step that you're willing to take to keep Social Security solvent?
yes, make the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share.
Of course,
Right
take
now,
from the wealthy and
everybody
give
making
to
under
the
$170,000 pays 6%
socialists.
of their income, of their paycheck, every single time they get a paycheck from the
Am I wrong, or did they've already
When
done the
18
math
years
that if
old.
you taxed
The
all the
idea
wealthy
that they're gonna-
100%,
I
that
heard
it wouldn't
proposals
even
that
take like, it would be like
everybody-
3
they pay-
days worth of the economy?
Millionaires pay 1%. 1%. So no one
Guess what
else-
happens when you
not
charge
raise the
a
cost of
billionaire
Social
more
Security.
than all
Everybody
the rest of
under
the countries?
$40,000
They
have
go to
have
some
begin
country
make
where they
the
don't have
wealthy
to pay so
begin to pay
much.
their fair
They just
share
live
by
somewhere else. They're
increasing it
billionaires.
1% beyond
We want the billionaires here, don't
guarantee
we?
the program for life.
Oh my God.
So you still have 82 seconds left. Are there any other measures that you think that would be able to help keep Social Security
CNN
solvent, or is that
Mod
one
said
enough?
no
Well,
notes,
that-
yet
that
I
one
clearly
will keep us
saw
solvent.
podium.
The
Yeah,
biggest
yeah.
thing will
Oh,
be
they said no
to defeat
notes?
this
I
man
definitely seen the
because
guy
he
writing
wants to
stuff
get
down.
rid of Social Security.
Biden was
He
definitely
thinks
writing
there's
stuff
plenty to
down.
cut in Social Security. He's wanted to cut Social Security and Medicare both times. And and if you look at the program put forward by the House Republican caucus that I believe supports, is in fact wanting to cut it as well. The idea that we don't need to protect our seniors is ridiculous. And by the way, the American public has greater health care coverage today than ever before. And on the AC, as I said, you're in a circumstance where 400,000 people, 40 million people would not have insurance because they have a pre-existing condition. The only thing that allows them to have that insurance is the fact that they, in fact, are part of the ACA. And by the way, the other thing is, we're in a situation where I talk about
And
education.
by the way,
Black communities. I've raised the amount of money for Pell Grants, another $8,000. So anybody making under $70,000 a year is going to be able to get $15,000 towards the tuition. He just doesn't know what he's talking about.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
So I've dealt with politicians all my life. I've been on this side of the equation for the last 8 years. I've never seen anybody lie like this guy. He lies. I've never seen it. He can look you in the face. About so many other things too. And we mentioned the laptop. We mentioned Russia, Ukraine. Everything he does is a lie. It's misinformation and disinformation. The losers and suckers story that he made up is a total lie on the military. It's a disgrace. But Social Security, he's destroying it because millions of people are pouring into our country, and they're putting them onto Social Security. They're putting them onto Medicare, Medicaid. They're putting them in our hospitals. They're taking the place of our citizens there.
the fact that he
What they're
shakes
doing
his
to the
fucking
VA,
head
to our veterans
is fucking
unbelievable.
tone
Our
deaf as
veterans are living in the
motherfucker.
street, and these people are
He
living in
refuses
luxury
to
hotels.
acknowledge that? What does he
He
think
doesn't know
that
what he's
the
doing,
people that are
and
pouring in are
It's
just
really coming back. I've never seen
insured
such
by
anger
somebody?
in our country before.
President Biden.
The idea that veterans are not being taken care of, I told you before. By the way, when I said suckers and
Veterans?
losers, he said he acknowledged after that he fired that general. That general got fired.
yeah, because he
he's the
talked
one that
shit. He
acknowledged
lied,
that
huh?
That's what he said. He was the one standing with Trump when he said it. Number one. Number two,
No, Trump
The
hasn't
idea
even
that
looked
we're gonna
down
be in a
except to
situation
make
where
sure the podium was
all
still
these
there.
millions and millions, the way he talks about it, illegal aliens are coming into the country and taking away our jobs. There's a reason why we have the fastest growing economy in the world. The reason why we have the most successful economy in the world. We're doing better than any other nation in the world. And by the way, those 15 Nobel laureates he talked about being phony, those 15 Nobel laureates.
What
economists,
15
they all
Nobel
said
laureates?
that if Trump is reelected, we're likely to have a recession and inflation is going to increasingly go up. And by the way, worst president in history, 159 presidential scholars voted that him the worst president in the history of the United States of America.
President Biden, thank you so much. Let's turn to the cost of child care, which many American families struggle to afford. President Trump, both you and President Biden have tried to address this issue, but the average cost of child care in this country has risen to more than $11,000 a year per child. For many families, the cost of child care for two children is more than their rent. In your second term, what would you do to make child care more affordable?
Just to go back,
Trump's going to put the children in cages.
Got fired because he was no good. And if he said that, that's why he made it up. But we have 19 people that said I didn't say it, and they're very highly respected, much more so than him. The other thing is, he doesn't fire people. He never fired people. I've never seen him fire anybody. I did fire a lot. I fired Comey because he was no good. I fired a lot of the top people at the FBI, drained the swamp. They were no good.
They told them to look towards Trump finally.
But they were no good. I inherited these people. I didn't put Comey there. He was no good. I fired him. This guy hasn't fired anybody. He never fires. He should have fired every military man that was involved with that the Afghanistan horror show, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. He didn't fire. Did you fire anybody? Did you fire anybody that's on the border that's allowed us to have the worst border in the history of the world? Did anybody get fired for allowing 18 million people, many from prisons, many from mental institutions? Did you fire anybody that allowed our country to be destroyed? Joe, our country is being destroyed as you and I sit up here and waste a lot of time on this debate.
Nice.
This shouldn't be a debate. He is the worst president. He just said about me because I said it. But look, he's the worst president in the history of our country. He's destroyed our country. Now all of a sudden he's trying to get a little tough on the border. He came out with a nothing deal, and it reduced it a little bit, like this much. It's insignificant. He wants open borders. He wants our country to either be destroyed or he wants to pick up those people as voters. And I don't think we just can't let it happen. If he wins this election, our country doesn't have a chance, not even a chance,
I don't know where
coming
this
out of this
came
rut.
from, but
We probably won't have a country left anymore. That's how bad it is. He is the worst in history by far.
I don't like to hear
Thank you,
that
President
shit.
Trump. President
There's no
Biden.
need
We're
for
the
that,
most
and it's
admired
pessimistic
country
as
in the
shit.
world. We're the United States of America. There's nothing beyond their capacity. We're the finest military in the history of the world, the finest in the history of the world. No one thinks we're weak. No one wants to screw around with us. Nobody. Number one. Number two, the idea that we're talking about worst presidents. I wasn't joking. Look it up. Go online. 159 or 58, don't hold me the exact number, presidential historians.
Don't hold me
They've
to
had
the exact
meetings and they
number,
voted.
but quote
He
me.
was the worst president in American history. One through best to worst. They said he was the worst in all of American history.
He's
That's
got a fucking
fact.
pen in his hand.
That's not conjecture.
He has a fucking
He can
marker
argue
in
they're
his
wrong, but that's what
hand.
they voted. The idea that he is doing anything to deal with child care. He did virtually nothing with child care. We should significantly increase the child care tax credit. We should significantly increase the availability of women and men.
No, not even touched
single
it.
parents to
Not
be able to
even
go back to
close
work.
yet.
And we should encourage
An hour and 8
businesses to
minutes
hold-
into it. Great
to
point.
have
Thank you, President
child care
Biden.
facilities.
President Trump,
Oh,
the
they
question was
cut him
about
off. They
what
cut him
would you do
off.
to make child care more affordable, if you want to take a minute.
Just so you understand, we have polling, we have other things that they rate him the worst because what he's done is so bad. And they rate me, I'll show you, I will show you. And they rate me one of the best, okay? And if I'm given another 4 years, I will be the best. I think I'll be the best. Nobody's ever created an economy like us. Nobody ever cut taxes like us. He's the only one I know. He wants to raise your taxes by 4 times. He wants to raise everybody's taxes by 4 times. He wants the Trump tax cuts to expire. So everybody, including the two of you, are going to pay 4 to 5 times. Nobody ever heard of this before. All my life, I'd grow up and I'd see politicians talking about cutting taxes. When we cut taxes, as I said, we did more business. Apple and all these companies, they were bringing money back into our country. The worst president in history by far, and everybody knows it.
President Biden?
Look, fact of the matter is that he's dead wrong about, he's increased the tariff, he will increase the taxes on middle class people.
What's he reading?
I said I'd never raise the taxes on
reading
anybody
something.
making less than $400,000. I didn't. But this tariff is 10% tariffs. Everything coming into the country, you know what?
He's holding a
economists
fucking
say?
marker.
That's going to cost the average American $2,500 a year more because they're going to have to pay the difference in food and all the things that we're reporting. Number two, he's in a situation where he talks about how he has not raised, he's somehow helped the middle class. The middle class has been devastated by you. Now you want a new tax cut of $5 trillion over the next 10 years, which is going to fundamentally bankrupt the country. You have the largest deficit of any president in American history, number one. Number two, you have not, in fact, made any contact, any progress with China. We are the lowest trade deficit with China since 2010.
Thank you, President Biden. Thank you, President Biden. Let's discuss an epidemic impacting millions of Americans that both of you have made a top priority in your first term, the opioid crisis. And for both of you, the number of overdose deaths in this country has gone up. Under your term, it went up. Under your term, it has gone up.
From Trump, it went to 8,000 to 22,000. And this guy, it went from 22,000 to 100,000 a year.
Every year, primarily from fentanyl and other opioids. What will you do to help Americans right now in the throes of addiction who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
To finish up, we now have the largest deficit in the history of our country under this guy. We have the largest deficit with China. He gets paid by China. He's a Manchurian candidate. He gets money from China.
Listen to that.
So I think he's afraid to deal with them or something. But you notice he never took out my tariffs because we bring in so much money.
He quit shaking his head as soon as he called them that.
China. He never took them away. He can't because it's too much money. It's tremendous. And we saved our steel industries, and there was more to come, but he hasn't done that. But he hasn't cut the tariffs because he can't, because it's too much money. But he's got the largest deficit in the history of our country, and he's got the worst situation with China. China's going to own us if you keep allowing them to do what they're doing to us as a country. They are killing us as a country, Joe, and
Trump,
you can't let that happen. You're destroying our country.
Trump.
So, President Trump, you have 67 seconds left. The question was, what are you going to do to help Americans in the throes of addiction right now who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
Jake, we were doing very well at addiction until the COVID came along. We had the 2.5, almost 3 years of like nobody's ever had before, any country, in every way. And then we had to get tough. And it was the drugs pouring across the border it started to increase. We got great equipment. We bought the certain dog that's the most incredible thing that you've ever seen, the way they can spot it. We did a lot. And we were getting very low numbers, very, very low numbers. Then he came along. The numbers, have you seen the numbers now? It's not only the 18 million people that I believe is even low because the gotaways, they don't even talk about gotaways. But the numbers of the amount of drugs and human trafficking in women coming across our border, the worst thing I've ever seen.
All over the place. He's not doing any better than Biden with his completing a sentence. Holy shit.
The number of drugs coming across our border now is the largest we've ever had by far.
President Trump, thank you. President Biden?
Fentanyl and the byproducts of fentanyl went down for a while.
What?
And I wanted to make sure we use the machinery that can detect fentanyl, these big machines that roll over everything that comes across the border. And it costs a lot of money. That was part of this deal we put together, this bipartisan deal. More fentanyl machines, more be able to detect drugs, more numbers of agents, more numbers of all the people at the border. And when we had that deal done, he called his Republican colleagues, said, don't do it. It's going to hurt me politically. No, he never argued it's not a good bill. It's a really good bill. We need those machines. We need those machines. And we're coming down very hard in every country in Asia in terms of precursors for fentanyl. And Mexico is working with us to make sure they don't have the technology to be able to put it together. That's what we have to do. We need those machines.
Is that working?
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, and again, the question is about
fucking how do you help people who are fucking addicted?
The treatment they need.
Well, this does pertain to it. He ended Remain in Mexico. He ended catch and release. I made it catch and release in Mexico, not catch and release here. We had so many things that we had done, hard negotiations with Mexico, and I got it all for nothing. It's just like when you have a hostage. We always pay $6 billion for a hostage. Every time we say it's a hostage. Now we have a hostage, a Wall Street Journal reporter. I think a good guy. And he's over there because Putin is laughing at this guy, probably asking for billions of dollars for the reporter. I will have him out very quickly as soon as I take office. Before I take office, I said by literally as soon as I win the election, I will have that reporter out. He should have had him out a long time ago. But Putin's probably asking for billions and billions of dollars because this guy pays it every time. We had 2 cases where he paid $6 billion for 5 people. I got 58 people out, and I paid essentially nothing.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
Let's turn to
That
concerns
had
that
nothing to
voters
do with
have
addiction.
about each of
What
you.
the fuck?
President Biden, you would be 86 at the end of your second term. How do you address concerns about your capability to handle the toughest job in the world well into your 80s?
Well, first of all, I spent half my career being criticized being the youngest person in politics. I was the second youngest person ever elected to the United States Senate, and now I'm the oldest. This guy's 3 years younger and a lot less competent. I think that just look at the record. Look at what I've done. Look how I've turned
This
around
guy's
the
3
Harvard
years younger
situation
than
he
you?
left me.
Holy
As I
shit.
said, 15 million new jobs, 800,000 manufacturing jobs.
Do they seem
More
3 years
investment in
apart?
America, over billions of dollars in private investment in enterprises that we are growing. By the way, we brought off a lot of people. Well, the whole idea of computer chips. We used to have 40% of the market. We invented those chips, and we lost it because he was sending people to find the cheapest jobs overseas and then bring home a product.
What are you
So
talking about?
I went to South
What the
Korea.
fuck was
I
that?
convinced Samsung to invest billions of dollars here in the United States. And guess what? Those fabs, they call them, that to build these chips, those fabs pay over $100,000. You don't need a college degree for them. And there's billions, about $40 billion already being invested and being built right now in the United States, creating
Guess what? You don't even need a
significant
college
jobs
degree for a
Americans all over
fab.
from all over the
Get
world.
yourself a fab. It's
President Biden, you have
$100,000.
40 seconds left. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I would.
Get a
The
fab.
idea that somehow we are this failing country. Never heard a president talk like this before.
Yeah, no shit.
We're the envy of the world. Like, name me a single major country president who wouldn't trade places with the United States of America for all our problems and all our opportunities.
Where the
We're the most
NBA
progressive
named me
country
a
in the
single
world. We get things
major.
done.
What the fuck?
We're the strongest country in the world. We're a country in the world who keeps our word, and everybody trusts us. All of our allies.
Oh shit!
And our-
Everybody
and
trusts
our-
us.
and our
That might
those
be
who
asking a
he
little bit
cuddles up
much.
to, from Kim Jong-un, we sent love letters to, and Putin, etc. They don't want
I
us
don't even want to
around
put this
us.
one on the screen.
Thank you. Former President Trump, to follow up, you would be 82 at the end of your second term. What do you say to voters who have concerns about your capabilities to serve?
Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them, both of them, as you know. We made it public. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one. Like go through the first 5 questions, he couldn't do it. But I took 2 cognitive tests. I took physical exams every year. And, you know, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood, that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way. And I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago.
Listening
Actually,
to
I'm
2
probably a little bit
80-year-old
lighter,
dudes
but I'm in as good a
compare
shape as I was
shape with each other.
years ago. I feel very good. I feel the same. But I was willing to take a cognitive test. And you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced it.
Okay, my next, I'm
Dr.
changing
Ronnie
this
Jackson,
poll, and I got
Great
another
guy.
poll
He
we're
was
going
White
with.
House doctor. And then I took another one, a
We've got
similar
another
one.
poll.
And one of them said they'd never seen anybody ace him.
Thank you. President Biden?
You can see he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds, or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's what anyway. Just take a look at what he says he is, and take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6.
Who the fuck gives a
By
shit
the
about
way,
your fucking
I told
golf?
you before, I'm happy to play
Fuck.
golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
Can you fucking finish a sentence
It's a
about
6
your fucking
handicap.
golf bag?
Golf.
What the fuck
I
is
was an
this?
8 handicap. 8. But I had, you know, I mean,
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Hey,
let's
let's
not
not
have
act
any
like
rounds.
children.
President Trump, we're going to
21
turn
Let's not act like children.
You
to
are
a
a child.
specific concern that
They are
voters
acting
have
like
about you.
children.
Will you pledge tonight that once all legal challenges have been exhausted, that you will accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins, and you will say right now that political violence in any form is unacceptable?
Well, I shouldn't have to say that, but of course I believe that. It's totally unacceptable. And if you would see my statements that I made on Twitter at the time, and also my statement that I made in the Rose Garden, you would say it's one of the strongest statements you've ever seen. In addition to the speech I made in front of, I believe, the largest crowd I've ever spoken to. And I will tell you, nobody ever talks about that. They talk about a relatively small number of people that went to the Capitol, and in many cases were ushered in by the police. And as Nancy Pelosi said, it was her responsibility, not mine. She said that loud and clear. But the answer is, if the election is fair, free, and I want that more than anybody. And I'll tell you something. I wish he was a great president, because I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be at one of my many places enjoying myself. I wouldn't be under indictment because I wouldn't have been his political appointment.
Okay, so now we got a new poll
Because he
going.
indicted me because I was his opponent. I wish he was a great president. I would rather have that. I wouldn't be here. I don't mind being here. The only reason I'm here is he's so bad as a president that I'm going to make America great again. We're going to make America great again. We're a failing nation right now. We're a seriously failing nation. And we're a failing nation because of him. His policies are so bad. His military policies are insane. They're insane. These are wars that will never end with him. He will drive us into World War III, and we're closer to World
It's
War
kind of
III
scary.
than anybody can imagine. We are very, very close to World War III. And he's
Every time he
driving
makes
us
a
there.
weird
And
face.
Kim Jong-un and President Xi of China, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, all of these, Putin, they don't respect him. They don't fear him. They have nothing going with this gentleman, and he's going to drive us into World War III.
You want a World War III, let him follow and win, and let Putin say, do what you want, NATO. Just do what you want. There's a thing called Article 5. An attack on one is an attack on all. A required response. The idea, I can't think of a single major leader in the world who wouldn't trade places with the job I've done, what they've done. Because we are a powerful nation. We have wonderful people. It's because of the people, not me. It's because of the American people. They're capable of anything, and they step up when they're needed. And right now, we're needed. We're needed to protect the world because of our own safety is at stake. And again,
We're needed
you
to
wanna have a
protect
war,
the
just let
world
Putin go ahead and
because
take
of our
Kyiv,
own
make sure
safety
they
is
move
a
on, See
stake.
what happens in Poland, Hungary, and other places along that border. Then you have a war.
President Trump, as I come
He
back
wants
to
to
you
fucking
for a
police the
follow-up,
world.
the question was, will you accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins?
He just
Just to
answered
finish
that
what he said,
fucking
if I might.
clearly as shit.
Russia, they took a lot of land from Bush. They took a lot of land from Obama and Biden. They took no land, nothing from Trump, nothing. He knew not to do it. He's not going to play games with me. He knew that. I got along with him very well, but he knew not to play games. He took nothing from me. But now he's going to take the whole thing from this man right here. That's a war that should have never started. It would have never started ever with me. And he's going to take Ukraine. And, you know, you asked me a question before, would you do this? He's got us in such a bad position right now with Ukraine and Russia, because Ukraine's not winning that war. He said, I will never settle until such time. They're running out of people. They're running out of soldiers. They've lost so many people. It's so sad. They've lost so many people, and they've lost those gorgeous cities with the golden domes that are 1,000 years old.
They're
all
going to
because
say
of
that
him
he
and
didn't
stupid
answer the
decisions.
question, though.
Russia would have never attacked if I were
President Trump,
president.
the question was, will you accept the results of the election, regardless of who wins? Yes or no, please.
If it's a fair and legal and good election, absolutely. I would have much rather accepted these, but the fraud and everything else was ridiculous. And if you want, we'll have a news conference on it in a week, or we'll have another one of these in a week. But I will absolutely, there's nothing I'd rather do. It would be much easier for me to do that than I'm running again. I wasn't really going to run until I saw the horrible job he did.
Am I on a
He's destroying our
rewind?
country.
What the
I would
fuck
be
happened?
very happy to be someplace else, in a nice location someplace. And again, no indictments, no political opponent stuff, because it's the only way he thinks he can win. But unfortunately, it's driven up my numbers and driven them up to a very high level because the people understand it.
Let's see what your numbers are when this election is over. Let's see. You're a whiner. When you lost the first time, you continued, you appealed and appealed the courts all across the country. Not one single court in America said any of your claims had any merit, state or local, none. But you continue to provoke this lie about somehow there's all this misrepresentation, all this stealing. There is no evidence of that at all. And I tell you what, I doubt whether you'll accept it because you're such a whiner. The idea if you lose again,
You're such a whiner. What the
you
fuck?
can't stand the loss. Something snapped in you when you lost the last time.
We'll be right back with more from the CNN presidential debate, live from Georgia.
So the question is this going to drive people from both and it's going to be an independent win or libertarian or green? So we're seeing some with no. We're seeing some, nobody's voting for Biden. That's weird. That's weird. Is that Toby? I can't, I'm trying to think of this as, is somebody else live? I don't need to be corking anybody, by the way. I just didn't see anybody out there that wasn't getting just ass loads of super chats. So I decided to go live and be a non-super chat way of watching this shit. But man, I just can't see somebody who's in Camp Biden watching this and going, I'm proud of this shit. Like this is remarkable. I could see somebody going, I've had really low expectations and he didn't hit rock bottom during it. But he hasn't completed a sentence. Not to say Trump has ever completed a sentence. So I can definitely look at it from the angle that Trump is not winning the other side over at all. Because I'm not Trump. I'm not pro-Trump. I'm not pro-Biden for sure. But I'm not like pro-Trump. So Trump's got to win me over. And he ain't winning me over because he ain't winning those people in the middle over. Like he wins me over by calming the fuck down. And it seems like he's content with playing this bullshit game of like, ask me a question, but I'm going to bitch about something else, which is fine, but it's going to give the other side ammunition. That's all they do. They look at just like our side only looks at Biden fumble. You know, it's fun to watch him fumble, I guess. It's easy to watch your opponent be obviously bad, but I'd rather look at my opponent when they're the most strategic and sharp so that I'm fighting against an actual opponent and not the opponent when they're fucking with me. But the other side is going to do the same thing. They're going to want to look at Trump's fuck ups and the fact that Trump doesn't answer some of these questions. And even though he answered directly the first time, will you accept the results of the election? I mean, he couldn't have said it any clearer directly to him. Like, it's ridiculous that you're asking this question, but of fucking course. And then they ask it again. Like, that's just to create a sound bite. That's the word I was looking for before. They're just creating a lot of sound bites with this shit. I don't hate both sides, but it is frustrating that we didn't have, like, what would this have been like if it was Tulsi Gabbard and I forget the guy who had the $1,000 a month socialist pay deal, like everybody gets paid $1,000 a month from the government. I forgot his thing, but like, what if those two would have been debating? They probably wouldn't have said shit like, you're the worst president in the United States in the history of time. Like, and I'm also not too worried about that because again, has anybody ever watched history or watched something about history of like the Civil War times and the times before the Civil War? And you know how many wars we had? War of 1812, Spanish-American War, French-American War. Like, there's a fuck ton of wars, and people always hate wars. And the presidents that campaigned during those wars fucking got mad at each other. They got like angry and they hated each other. Parties were created. So this is mild. This is old dudes who probably don't even have their real teeth. You know what I mean? Like, this ain't much. They probably do have their teeth, actually. This the end?
We've made significant progress from the debacle that was left.
I'll mention again, no American flags anywhere in sight.
This last term.
Except for right here.
We find ourselves in a situation where, number one, we have to make sure that we have a fair tax system. I ask anyone out there in the audience or anyone out watching this debate, do you think
there is no audience?
The fact is that I said nobody even making under $400,000 had a single penny increase in their taxes, and will not. And if I'm reelected, that'll be the case again. But this guy has increased your taxes because of the deficit, number one. He's increased inflation because of the debacle he left after the way he handled the pandemic. And he finds himself in a position where he now wants to tax you more by putting a 10% tariff on everything that comes into the United States of America. What I did, when, for example, he wants to get rid of the ability of Medicare for us to be able to negotiate drug prices with the big pharma companies. Well, guess what? We got it down to $35 for insulin instead of $400. No more than $2,000 for every senior, no matter how much prescription they need. You know what that did? That reduced the federal debt by $160 billion over 10 years because the government doesn't have to pay the exorbitant prices. I'm going to make that available to every senior all along.
Did he just say that we didn't have to pay as much for fentanyl?
Wants to get rid of that.
What the
I'm
fuck?
going to make sure that we have child care. We're going to significantly increase the credits people have for child care. We're going to make sure we do something about what we're doing on lead pipes and all the things that are causing health problems for people across the country. We're going to continue to fight to bring down inflation and give people a break.
Thank you, President
Lead
Biden. President
pipes,
Trump, you now have
just
2
above
minutes for your closing
inflation,
statement.
not tone deaf at
Like
all.
so many politicians, this man is just a complainer. He said, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to get rid of this tax, that tax. But he doesn't do anything. All he does is make our country unsafe by allowing millions and millions of people to pour in. Our military doesn't respect
Gun
them.
control
We
is
look like
not brought
fools
up
in
at all.
Afghanistan. We didn't stop Israel. It was such a horrible thing that would have never happened. It should have never happened.
Not
Iran
even
was
an
broke.
issue.
Anybody that did business with Iran, including China, they couldn't do business with the United States. They all passed. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, for terror, no money whatsoever. Again, Ukraine should have never happened. He talks about all this stuff, but he didn't do it. For 3.5 years, we're living in hell. We have the Palestinians and we have everybody else rioting all over the place. You talk about Charlottesville.
Did
This
they
is
want water?
100 times Charlottesville, 1,000 times. The whole country is exploding because of you, because they don't respect you, and they have to respect their president, and they don't respect you throughout the world. What we did was incredible. We rebuilt the military. We got the largest tax cut in history, the largest regulation cut in history. The reason he's got jobs is because I cut the regulations that gave jobs, but he's putting a lot of those regulations back on. All of the things that we've done, nobody's never seen anything like, even from a medical standpoint, right to try, where we can try space age materials instead of going to Asia or going to Europe and trying to get when you're terminally ill. Now you can go and you can get something. You sign a document. They've been trying to get it for 42 years. But you know what we did for the military was incredible. Choice for our soldiers, where our soldiers, instead of waiting for 3 months to see a doctor, can go out and get themselves fixed up and readied up and take care of themselves, and they're living. And that's why I had the highest approval rating in the history of the VA. So all of these things, we're in a failing nation, but it's not going to be failing anymore. We're going to make it great again.
Thank you, former President Trump, President Biden. Stay with us because we have full analysis of this debate.
That's the
Anderson
end?
Cooper and Aaron
Holy
Burnett
shit.
starts now on CNN.
Holy shit. So I started a couple of questions here, or it's comments, I guess, that people had made. But this shit show is ending with silence and these guys not shaking each other's hand. There's no fucking American flag anywhere. Fucking A. This is shitty. This is super shitty. This is seriously the end? This is horrible. That's an embarrassment to CNN. So, of course, they got this guy on here. Oh my goodness, that's shitty. So, Zane is saying, why do you think the opioid crisis? I don't think it's the government. The government, the ability to orchestrate something that they profited off of and they do exploit. But to suggest that they created it is undermining the influence that China has had with their precursors and sending them directly to Mexico, which they've had relationships with since before we were even a country. And because there was a shit ton of slavery in Mexico from China, and the cultures are intertwined and mixed, and the relationships go back in time to predating most of the people and structures. or societies and stuff, because China's old as shit. So since they created all the precursors, they send them all to Mexico, and then they're facilitated up here by bad border policy. I don't think the government could have orchestrated on any of that. So they're exploiting off of it for sure, but it can be ended through root cause mitigation and rediversion of resources. Let's see. So this is horrible crap. We'll definitely turn this off because that's the end of the debate. I think that was shitty of CNN. It was a horrible debate, and it was the worst ending ever. It's a horrible. Like I said, they didn't shake hands or nothing. They didn't even look at each other, and disrespect from both of them. Let's see. We had a couple of votes here. Everybody thinks Trump's going to win. I really think this helped the independents, the Green Party, and the libertarians more than anybody. And I like to see, I think I did a graphic on this before. They want us to think that the country is 50-50, half for Trump and half for Biden. But in reality, only half the country votes. So of that half, it might be 50-50. But in reality, most of the country has the decision. And if they get just a little bit on one side or the other, it's a landslide. And they don't want you to realize that. They want you to think it's a done deal and your vote don't mean shit. So to that end, fuck CNN, because they definitely created an environment that offered no enthusiasm or indication of a crowd's interpretation of anything that was said here. And that is unlike anything we've ever seen in a presidential debate that I'm aware of. I don't pay attention to all of them. But I can't even imagine watching the people who are pro-Biden trying to come up with ways that Biden won this thing. But that must be happening. And I suspect it has to do with Trump who didn't answer his questions. Trump didn't specifically say something that they wanted him to say. And can you believe that Trump said this? They're not going to think about how Biden stumbled around through it. And although he was coherent through the whole thing, well, he was awake through the whole thing, he wasn't coherent since the beginning. And he was fucking writing notes the whole fucking time. And I doubt anybody's going to bring that up except for on the Trump side. But I didn't see the part at the beginning, I guess, where they said you're not supposed to take notes. And he's fucking standing there with a pen. He took notes like 100 times. Toby said, I'd like to see the tariffs and elimination of income tax. I think I remember from some kind of a class that can't work with just tariffs. And that was like a justification for taxes, income tax. But I would definitely like to re-examine that and see if it is if I remember it as, and then if it still stands up in 2024. Because whatever I remember is from the 1980s or something. And it was my vague recollection. But I think I remember something because I was very anti other countries when I was a kid. I've always been pro United States. So I was like, anytime I heard of the economic system where you don't pay taxes and you just charge other countries for bringing their shit in, I was like, hell yeah, I'm on board. But then I thought I remembered being talked out of it by the knowledge or, by the facts or something. But I'm barely remembering something from high school, I think. So then Zane said, when Biden talked about Article 5, that was scary how quickly that popped up. Yeah, it's kind of butt clenching to think about that guy being so adamant about, he's right, I'm going to war. And what is his reality about war? Everybody he knows gets on a fucking plane or goes into a bunker and comes out to whenever people say it's okay for you to come out after they've cleaned everything the fuck up in the part that they're going to live in. So if any humans on this planet don't have any consequences of a fucking nuclear situation, it's the fuckers that are the ones that have the buttons. So that's pretty frustrating to hear that guy jump on that more than once. So that was definitely, I agree with you on that. Toby's saying CNN is the propaganda arm of the Democrats. See, I need to do that when I start getting the Minuteman University project going back again. And I'd like to think I could get it before the elections, but I just don't know. But I am trying to do stuff. Like, that's what this is all about. I'll do it on Tuesdays maybe. But, I mean, there's other things I'd rather track first, but it would be interesting. Or maybe I could just look for, because somebody must have already done the work on this. But if, have you ever seen the thing about, like, how all the tool companies are owned by, like, a couple of 4 companies? Who owns media outlets? I would definitely like to see something that shows, like, a graphically who owns who, because that's kind of interesting to me. But then also like what their affiliation is, because that's also, I'm too dense to keep track of that shit. So I just need it all explained to me. Who owns the media? This is European Federation of Journalists. I could care less, but that must also happen in Europe. They're the ones that invented propaganda, after all. But yeah, I think it looks like somebody's already done the math on this or done the work on this. So that would be neat to dive into and see where they all are. I only care when I'm paying attention, which is usually at elections and then when they're attacking guns or gun owners' rights. So I'm like a fair weather politician or politic. I don't know what you call it when somebody pays attention to politics. But thanks for that. And Mike saying CNN is probably saying how great Biden was. I imagine. Because like I say, I don't know if they're going to say how great he was as much as like how bad Trump was. And they're definitely going to make a note that like, no matter how old you think Biden is, Trump's only 3 years different. So he's hardly an alternative. I mean, he's got a different color tie on. Oh, wow. Right. So then Toby said, I think he's pissed the deck is stacked against him, but I actually think CNN is doing better than expected. So then that was one of the reasons I starred these. If you're still here, are you talking about Trump here or are you talking about Biden here? Who do you think is pissed because the deck is stacked against him? Like Trump? At first, when I was watching this, I assumed, I think all media is anti-gun essentially. So I just assume all of them hate guns. So I'm never going to trust any of them. And even the ones that claim to like guns at a national level don't like guns because they don't care enough to actually pay attention to know things. They always are stupid about guns. They might be on our side, but they're like the least effort on our side, right? So I don't pay much attention to media, period. That's why I watch Toby's show all the time, because he actually does pay attention, filters it all down for us people that don't have the time to watch all that media. But Wednesdays in the afternoon, and Tuesdays on the Grace Curley show, and then on Sundays they have a radio show too. And you can go to their gun shop if you want. But let me know who you were talking about if you're still out there. Zane is saying, I'm very certain we're going to nuclear war. Nah, I don't think so at all. One, the whole concept that we have nuclear things like running around, that's a lot of movie shit. Like, yes, we have them, but the whole idea that we're going to glass the planet, maybe in like the 1970s we could have. Maybe in the like 1980s it was a possibility still. But it costs a shit ton of money, and it doesn't cost that much to front. And we got a lot of fronting going on, in my opinion. But I don't want to test it, but I just don't think it's a big... I think one of the reasons we don't see nothing is because everybody knows everybody's fronting on that shit. Surprisingly, their admitting Biden did poorly. Oh, good. CNN's screen says, Dumb's concerned with Biden's performance. I applaud the, not the content, but I applaud the honesty, right? Like, if they said that he was doing good, then I would just know that they're fake as shit. The drinking game, man, I don't know. But you know what we could do is do something where we could... Are you allowed to wager? Have some sort of a game or a balancing game, like a chat battle would be good, or something similar where we had a couple of people going live, and then maybe predict, like, how often is somebody going to bring this up? Like, how often are they going to bring up guns? 0, right? That was awesome. Let's not forget that they didn't even bring up guns this time. That was definitely good news. Biden didn't even allude to it. So here's another question. Do I still have a poll going? I don't know if I closed that poll. It's hard to say. Is this my video? Yeah, it is my video. So I don't think I have a poll going. But do you think Biden had something in his ear? Do you think that, or either one of them? It didn't seem like Trump needed anybody in his ear. But do you think that Biden had somebody telling him to look to his right? Because for a while there, he was looking off into space and it looked stupid. And I'm wondering if somebody told him, hey, start looking over to the right so it looks like you're in the conversation. Because essentially for the first half of this thing, Biden was staring off to the right like this, and it looked like he was just, having a hard time keeping up or something. And then after the little break, or actually right before their little break, somebody told Biden, like, hey, start paying attention to which way the camera's pointing and start looking at the dude once in a while. until the very end. And then they deliberately started not looking at each other because they were essentially telling each other they suck at golf. And obviously that matters so much to both of them. I like to think that when they got off on that golf bullshit, that a whole bunch of independents got registered and a whole bunch of libertarians got registered and a whole bunch of green parties. I don't want to put them all together because I want all three of those parties on some kind of a ballot, because I really would like to see what would that be 5 or even 6 parties would bring to a table. I haven't heard too much negative about having multiple parties. I'd really like to see some gridlock, and I'd like to see nuance to issues. Right now, they get to play this black and white, and they get to play this bullshit game that they played tonight where they are supposed to be playing tennis, but they're really just knocking balls off in whatever direction they feel like every time they want to. And nobody calls them in, or nobody reels them in on that, and it's just bullshit. Yeah, I hear you. I got to get back to work. But I figured since the only person going live was getting like $50 super chat after $50 super chat, it was driving me nuts watching somebody just make shit tons of money to watch people make shit tons of money. You know, 2 dudes who already have a shit ton of money. So I figured I'd go live over here. But thanks to Mike White, I have a shit ton of money because of the super chats. Thank you very much. That is more than 10% of what this channel brings in. So you just increased this channel's income this month by 10%, probably more like 14% if I did the math. So thank you very much for that. And Zane is saying we need a libertarian president. Man, I don't know if I need a libertarian president, because I know a lot of people would pee themselves and lose faith in their whole reality if that happened, which is unfortunate. But in other words, I don't know if they can handle that. But I would like to see a shit ton of the Congress be a different party than the 2 established bullshit ones. And these are the government was formed to have 2 parties. It's just been like this and been lazy for a while, and I think manipulated into 2 parties for a while. So yeah, I would like to see a little mix in there. Gizzard's joining us for the end, appropriately at the end of all of this stuff. But yeah, thanks everybody for joining. I got to get back to work. I don't think I was quirking anybody. If I was, oh well. The president and the other president had to get mad at each other about golf, so we wanted to go live and look at that. I won't put any stuff on here. Thanks again to Mike White for the super chats, and hope everybody has the rest of the night is good, and I'll see you later.